Welcome, yogis. Om Shanti Shanti. Om Peace Peace. Namaste. These are the words that you hear me use at the end of almost every class. And I've been thinking a lot about Shanti, peace. That's the Sanskrit word for peace. And also the opposite of peace, which you could probably come up with a variety of words, but I specifically think of suffering. And the word in Sanskrit that most closely matches that basically is dukkha. I think it's D-U-K-K-H-A. And I've been thinking a lot about the suffering that's happening, of course, always at various places in the world and in our own lives, but especially right now with the recent upheavals and breakouts of violence and all forms of suffering that are happening as a result. And it can be really hard to know how to respond, especially if we're not in a position to actively respond. Nothing is being called of us, if you will, and there's nothing active to do. Then what do we do with that energy? All of our own concern, grief, fear, pain, anger, suffering. And more importantly, too, how do we help? There's a wonderful phrase that's essentially that the only way to help make the world peaceful is to make our own life peaceful. And I feel like that begins, first of all, with our body. So we're going to be doing some great practice today that's just about settling in to a peaceful, steady breath. And then also working at balancing out the body in ways that perhaps are where the body's experiencing disharmony. I think of torque, or where you've got partnering muscle groups that are overly stubborn. So kind of returning us to this idea that I remember talking a lot about in April when we first started some virtual classes together, the importance of restoring neutral or balance. Because whenever we're out of neutral, some part of us is striving, overacting, overreacting. And that is the opposite of peace, where it's just, so I like to say we're seeking the in yoga. And we're going to use our yoga practice to help find more in our structure. And that's really a first step to finding then a state of internal peace mentally, emotionally. But I'll also be sharing a meditation at the end of our practice that I hope you will find useful. It's extremely simple and just kind of repetitive, and in that sense very meditative. There's nothing complex. The loving kindness meditation is another one, which is also available on my YouTube channel. You can go find that under the meditations playlist. But it has a lot more words. And so this is a very, very simple meditation involving exchanging the dukkha or suffering for shanti, peace. So I hope you'll join me for that when we get there. For now, we're going to start off seated. So I want to make sure that we find neutral and peace in the spine. If we're kind of hunched and sort of hanging on, or building a bunch of tension up in the back or the hips, we're not going to be able to receive the state of peace and ease that should be available in most of our postures. So take a moment, please. Find comfort, the knees straight forward of the hips and so on. And I'm going to place my hands on the knees with the index finger and thumb touching. And this is just a lovely kind of peaceful connection and resolve, if you will, of the fingers and this mudra or hand position. So experiment and see if that feels kind of And when you are ready to join me, please tune in, turn your gaze up and in, behind the center of the forehead, right between or above the eyebrows. Recognize this internal world that is you. And begin to soften all the muscles of the scalp and face, melting through the cheeks, the lips, the jaw. Allow space between the upper and lower molars. Let the tongue grow heavy towards the base of the throat. This alone encourages more peace, a decrease in stress, striving, anger, and so on. As you are ready, connect the end of the tongue at the roof of the mouth behind the front teeth and begin your soft ujjayi, that little bit of throat contraction. Now we can do a powerful ujjayi that might be more audible to yourself and to others, and that might deeply engage the core muscles. And I find that to be particularly useful when I am in flow and I want to make sure my core is present and that I'm really moving full breath. But we'd like to become adept at a more relaxed or peaceful ujjayi. So see if you can find that here, where there's just that soft whooshing sound as the breath passes through the throat, in and out, just like wind in the trees or soft waves rolling into the shore. And as the breath rises and settles in our body along our spine, we might notice areas that feel restrictive, congested. And that is one of the other great gifts of the breath, is that it helps us notice, if we're attentive, those tight areas, but also it's the best tool for releasing and then restoring harmony, peace, ease. So whenever you're tuning into breath, whether it's seated here as we are today, or if you're on your back body, take advantage of the opportunity to let breath massage your spine and restore you to neutral. In a moment, I'm going to be offering a Sufi grind, which is a circular movement seated here. And it can be done in very small circles, and then it can also grow to larger circles. But the key would be that we're not taking on additional tension doing it, and that it's also allowing us to recognize what tensions are there and help release them. So I'm going to start by going counterclockwise with my rib cage. And I'm not making an effort to move the head or the hips. There might be some kind of responsive movement from those areas of the body, but I'm not stirring with my whole spine. I'm basically staying mostly head right above the tailbone and allowing the rib cage to circle. Now you might be going really slow, or you might be speeding it up at some point. Regardless, the breath remains, and you can match it to the movement or not. It doesn't matter. So we're going to be here for a few more rounds, going counterclockwise, breathing, noticing where are the lines of tension or areas of stagnation. And this witnessing allows us, first of all, to be more safe and protective during our practice of any areas that are like, ooh, I'm kind of sore there. I don't feel like I'm quite rightly aligned. This counterclockwise motion can be considered an unwinding sequence. So if there's anything also, a pattern, a thought form that you recognize doesn't serve you and you want to kind of unwind that, holding that intention. And on your next inhale, pausing in that forward motion, and exhaling, reversing into your clockwise sequence, the building or creative sequence. And so here, if there's any particular thought form or pattern that you'd like to put in place, an intention that you'd like to build on, you might hold that in your mind's eye. and being curious what's here in the spine. We're going to be doing basically a version of this in table pose. So it'll be another nice opportunity to lubricate the spine. We're going to do a few more this direction, slowing or speeding. Breathing slow, steady ujjayi, soft tongue, soft gaze. And the next time you are inhaling, pause forward, and then please exhale, round into your cat back. Inhale, raise or reach the heart forward, drawing your shoulder blades together in a little shoulder blade sandwich. And exhale, round and tuck. So again, this is a seated version of our cow-cat. Inhaling into that kind of cow back or arch forward, briefly reach the chin up. Exhaling, round back. You can even kind of compress the chin to the throat. Nice massage for the thyroid. And again, reaching the chin up. Notice I'm not collapsing my head down. There's a wonderful spaciousness in the spine. Getting that long stretch through the throat and chest. Last one. And now I'm going to come into a side body stretch. So planting that right hand, rooting through the sits bones, reaching up through that left arm and over to the right. Please let breath inspire undulation and movement here and in fact in our entire practice. The more organic you get, the more breath inspired, the more you are doing yoga and not some sort of synchronized aerobics class or something like that. This really should come from your own inspiration, not my alignment that I'm putting out there. And at some point, invitation to rotate the chest towards the floor if that feels good. Deep reach. And you can just release the arm down as you come to neutral, or you could also reach back up. And we'll go to the other side, planting the left hand, rooting and reaching. Might roll out the wrist, exhaling over to the left. Notice if this side's different. And on this last one, invitation to rotate the chest towards the floor. And return. And then this would be a lovely moment to just rotate the head atop the spine. You might add the hands in that little collar so that again we keep the spine elongated, that there's no compression there in the neck vertebrae. And then I'm going to release onto hands and knees, inviting you to join me please. Table pose, inhaling to your cow and exhaling to your cat. Reminder please that you want to always check your hands that they are feeling the pressure in the full palm, not in the wrist. And this becomes really important when we're in plank, and the rest of our dogs here is too. And once you've done a couple cow-cats, then begin to please do that same circular kind of motion that you were doing in our Sufi grind. And again, you might add some more organic movement here because we're in a shape that's more available. I take my hips back to the heels, and at some point reverse your direction. And then please pause in your stable table and inhaling, lift right hand, left knee. Exhaling, return, all four limbs. Inhaling, lift left hand, right knee. And you're wanting to watch, exhaling, return, for any drops, any compensations. Inhaling, right hand, left knee, and now hold, extend. And again, check that you haven't dropped that left chest that you're drawing up, and see if you can even lift your left hand right off the floor. You almost don't need it. One more long inhale and exhale. Come back as slowly as you can. Lots of core, hopefully a little quiver, and notice the kind of peace or calm of all four limbs on the floor. Inhaling, extend, pause, recommit to that kind of almost cat back, and extend out a little bit to the left. Oh, I've didn't do that on the other side. We will in a moment. Exhale and come slowly back. Good. Always roll out wrists. One more round. Inhaling, extend right arm, left leg, hold. And now please take those limbs out to the side just a little bit. You know, it's not a big, trying to get it as far to the side as you can. Slowly come back. Inhaling, extend left arm and right leg. Power through that heel. Slowly out to the side. And you can feel how taking our weight out to the side really requires a waking up of more core stabilizing. And it's really good for us. Slowly come on back. Good. Go ahead and roll out wrists. And we're going to come into our first downward facing dog. Intelligent hands. Curl those toes under, shoulder heads anchor. Big inhale. Exhale, belly to spine. And send the hips up. Sighing breaths are so profoundly useful for calming our amygdala, the alarm center of our brain that says something's not okay, I'm not safe. And I think the more that you are being barraged with any information and thoughts of your own of not safe, it's really valuable to just add those sighing breaths of recognition. I'm well, I'm whole, I'm safe. Pedaling. Good. One more full breath here. See if you can work the heels towards the floor. It doesn't matter if they ever get there, but using that core power, just like you do in compression, belly to spine. Bam. Good. And return to your knees. Good. Let's sit the butt back towards child's pose a moment and just love up those wrists. You can just give them a little rub, rock and roll. And we're going to be returning to hands and knees to do a little quadricep stretch. Now, if you're just, again, getting too much wrist pressure, come on down to your belly and do pre-bow bow. Otherwise, I'm going to ask you to take your right foot and you're going to try and like press your heel to the sky, leg is bent. And I want to make sure I'm not collapsing. Again, this really requires stable table. I'm going to reach back through the left hand and try and clasp that right ankle. And if you can't at all, then doing a standing quad stretch or bow would be your good option here. Otherwise, you'll need to let that left shoulder blade now rotate down. That's one of the things that I love about this pose. It's like yoga mudra for that wonderful stretch through the shoulder blade and chest. One more long breath. See if you can raise your heel a little higher. Hello, quadricep. And exhaling, return. Again, so important that your core is deeply engaged so that you're not creating pressure in the low back. So nice stability here. Left heel presses towards the sky. You might do it a couple times, free form, just feel what's happening. Breathing, reaching back through that right hand to left ankle, seeing if you can kind of bring it back towards the center line. If, like me, you had to kind of wag it over to the right to get a hold of it. And now letting that right shoulder blade draw down. Bring breath into the chest. Is this side different? I can really feel this very differently in my quadricep on one leg than the other. Just a really different kind of sensation of tightness. One more breath, sending that heel higher. And release. Marvelous. I'm going to come into child's pose with thread the needle. You could also do it from standing if you would prefer. So I'm going to lift up and reach my right arm through and under the left. So I'm kind of looking under my left armpit. And then I might just keep that left arm extended, or I might bring it in right in front of my face to kind of deepen a spinal twist here. This also offers a nice stretch into that area behind the blade and kind of into that upper back. And to come out, make sure that you lift and safely release that right hand. Weave the left arm under, thread the needle. And you might draw that right hand to in front of your face, allowing the inhale to take its full space. This is what tells the body that it's relaxed and peaceful. And also letting the exhales be long and slow. And when you're ready, come on back to your neutral position. Good. We're going to come up into downward facing dog again. And if, again, at any point you're experiencing too much hand work, there's almost always a way to just adjust things to a stable standing position or to come onto knees to make it less intense. When you're ready, come into your downward facing dog. Knees would be your alternate here because we're going to add some balance effort as well as core strength by just taking that right leg flying. Now I want you to start with like just a hover with the right foot a little off the floor, leg powerfully straight, and then take it up flying. And notice what's available. Can you get both arms working equally? Nice strong shoulders activated down the spine. And as you replace that foot, notice the kind of of all four limbs on the floor. All of a sudden downward dog feels easy, right? Then take that left leg, again, just hover it, because I want you to notice too if you're doing weird kind of drops with the hip or the chest or something, and to stabilize it. It really requires you to wake up the correct muscles. So sometimes we gotta stay present enough and investigate to figure out who's not doing their job. Take that leg flying. Breathe here. Nice soft neck, soft tongue. And replace that foot. Lovely. Coming into first dog series, I'm going to drop down to my knees. Inhale to a very thoughtful plank, really extending my spine. Exhaling chaturanga, no wings, no shrugs, elbows in, shoulders down. And settling to the floor for cobra. Inhale, pelvis anchors, spine extends. And exhaling, no wings, no shrugs, either child's pose or downward facing dog. And downward dog, set your drishti gaze between the feet. Inhale, exhale, sigh. And we're going to all end up in ragdoll at the back of the mat. Take your time, really working those arms if you're moving from dog to ragdoll. And here, just let the spine settle and rest with gravity. And then as you feel inspired to kind of move, you might rotate a little bit, sort of sweeping the area around the feet. You can shift the weight a little forward in the feet and also a little back to notice what's happening there. And then invitation for a brief yoga mudra, so bending the knees more deeply. If you can, intertwining the hands behind, and if not, you might grab a strap, a sock, whatever, a belt. As you're ready, release. Inhale, root and rise. Exhaling, prayer hands, and I often touch the thumbs to that third eye point, and then find it to my heart space. So in mountain, reminder that we want to be rooting and reaching, but also very peaceful, and our container soft enough that breath can kind of move the container. We're not stiff and rigid. So tune into your breath a moment and see if you have that kind of receptivity for breath and that kind of peace in the muscles that the body can be moved by the breath. We're going to step sideways on our mat into our straddle, extending those arms on out. Nice 5-pointed star. We remember that this basic pose, although you don't have to have your legs this wide, is wonderful for just joy and positive energy. As you're ready, please turn that right foot 90 degrees. Pulse, powering with that back leg, pulse your hips towards that front heel. And check out where you need to be. Good. And then I'm going to have us settle here a moment. And so even inside the effort that's happening in that right thigh, see if you can find a soft mental space here. The breath, again, is our indicator of ease and peace. It says we are practicing yoga, not striving. On an inhale, straighten that front leg. Reach straight up, squeeze the thigh muscles towards the bone. Good, we're going to come into triangle pose. So inviting you to cock that right hip And you might slide that right hand only down through the inside of the shin there, stack those shoulders, and align the head. If you want to add the left arm, go for it. If you feel like a deep pull, then I would keep it on the waistline like so. And frankly, making this a little easier, one of the great gifts is being able to then breathe here. So I'm going to very intentionally breathe a deep inhale, letting it bring me maybe a little up out of the pose, and then exhaling, deepen. Good, let's do one more. And coming straight up, turn the heels neutral and fold in your straddle. Just nice relaxed breath there. Remember, you can sigh anytime. You might go a little side to side if you're like, oh yeah, that would feel good. And then as you're ready, come on up. We're gonna turn that left foot 90. And again, we're experimenting, exploring, noticing, going a little deeper if we can. We want that front knee above the heel, not behind it or in front of it. So go as deep as you can with that integrity, and then add those arms into your warrior two. Again, they could be facing down, platter hands. And one of the things that will help us know that we are just at peace in this pose is that we're not reaching. That'll actually create a lot of weird tension in that inner thigh and maybe even into that back leg. So check where you are, that we are as close to neutral as we can be in the spine, that the head is directly above the tailbone. One more breath. Soft tongue, soft gaze. Inhaling, straighten the front leg, reach up, squeeze thigh muscles towards the bone, and then preparing for our triangle. So cock that left hip and begin to slide the left hand down, rotating that back shoulder, right shoulder back, and then checking the head alignment. Again, often it's forward of the spine. And again, you might add that top arm, or you might keep it on the hip. Either way, emphasize breath. If you feel the need to lean on the leg, you're going too far. Some part of your body is saying, not safe. I often get some nice chiropractic adjustments here in the spine in this pose. It's one of the things I'm appreciative of triangle pose for. And come straight up and neutral the feet. Lovely. We're gonna move right into dog series. So when you are ready, rotate that right foot, plant the hands, core support, hiya, downward facing dog. I'm going to offer a little spinal pumping here as I consider it versus full dog series actually. So inhaling, come forward all the way to upward facing dog, either on the balls of the feet or if you prefer the tops. And exhaling, belly take you back, downward facing dog. A couple more. If this is too much, you could do a knee down version. You could also go to cobra. Either way, think about that heart drawing forward, away from the heels. Good, one more. And we're gonna release on down to the knees, hands on hips. You could do a standing version of this if being down on the knees doesn't work. Stepping forward with that right foot and sending the hips forward. So you could be in a crescent lunge, for example, if this doesn't work in your body. Otherwise, pause, pulse. Try to get that right hip bone back, left hip bone forward. Maybe add your arms. One more long inhale. You might reach the chin up. Then exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, exhale, sigh. And then return to your knees and step that left foot forward, hands on hips. We want to make sure that the hips are coming as far forward as they can come and that we've got that little bit of inner thigh rotation. So nice strong support at the pelvis and core. And then find your edge, deep breath, maybe adding a little back bend. And exhaling, belly to spine, downward facing dog.
holding and resting, or if you'd like to add a dog series here, as slowly as you can. Inhaling plank, maybe on knees, maybe on feet. Pause, raise the hips a little bit, and exhale chaturanga. Think about getting your nose towards the floor before the hips. Either inhale cobra, hips on the floor, or suspended upward dog. No wings, no shrugs, downward facing dog. And we're going to come into a little warrior flow from here. Those of you who enjoy dog and like flying and so on, you'll come from here. Otherwise, please step to the front of the mat and come into standing crane, left knee lifted. Those of us in downward facing dog, take that right leg flying. Pause. Again, notice compensation, reaching through that heel. And ever so slowly, core support, come into your crescent lunge, right foot at the front of the mat. Pause, steer those hip bones forward, and feel again that stability. Soft tongue, steady the breath. And of course the arms can be wherever you'd like. One more long inhalation, breath rising, asking, is there more? Exhaling, Virabhadrasana 2, Warrior 2, back foot plants, 90 degrees. And we can add those platter hands. That right hand is considered our offering hand. If there are any gifts that you'd like to offer up, any yogic gifts, gifts of our practice, maybe it is peace, shanti. Soft tongue. One more. And you might choose to move into straight leg again and reach up, or stay with the bent knee, reverse or exalted warrior, whatever's feeling appropriate. Either way, always take your vision where the neck experiences the most ease. And letting breath move you in and out of that side body stretch. We don't want any collapse through that back waist, so it's really the ribs moving forward. And then slowly into your lateral stretch. Again, shoulders are stacked. Our support now from that lower rib cage, shoulder head activated down and back. And you might reach that left arm forward. That's what's going to give you the biggest side body stretch. You're always welcome to play with binding or partial bind, which we've done before. Enjoying one more long inhale. Sometimes I like looking forward over my head by that hand. That's a challenge for balance, which is great. Exhaling, release, hands on floor, pause. Walk that right foot to the right. Give yourself a little space. You can always do knee down. Steer the right hip bone back, left hip bone forward as you rotate open through that right arm. Now an alternate might just be having the hand on the knee and enjoying the twist from here. Maybe you even want to come into a partial bind here. And a slow unwinding, long inhale. Exhale, step back, downward facing dog. Inhale, exhale, sigh. Working the heels towards the floor. Hello, hamstrings. Good. Option to come right into warriors with me on the other side. You can always do more dog series in between if you're like never satisfied unless you do 15 rounds. Left leg flying, downward facing dog, or you're at the front of the mat and standing crane, right knee lifted. Pause. Notice. Is this side different? What needs to work? What can you relax? Make sure both arms are working equally. Exhale, slow journey to your crescent lunge. Steer right hip bone forward, left hip bone back. That's what creates stability, and make sure we're working the right muscles in the thighs and not torquing on things that aren't designed to do that movement. And find your position. Maybe it's prayer hands. So where we're asking a lot of effort to be going on in the legs and the hips and the glutes. And so as a sort of compensation, if you will, a balance, you might just be in a relaxed space with the arms. Or maybe you're deeply reaching and you want to add a back bend
One more long inhale. Exhale, opening Virabhadrasana 2. So again, now those thighs are externally rotating. And I always take those first few moments to just check in my spacing of my feet. Finding that neutral spine, head right above the tailbone, just floating. Platter hands, left hand, our receiving hand. Any gifts of inspiration, support, blessing, nourishment. Breath rising and settling, finding the gap or pause best you can. Inhaling, straighter bent leg, reaching up through that left arm. Again, taking your vision wherever is easeful. One more long inhale. And exhale, lateral stretch. Left elbow to thigh, rib cage engaging upward. So you really don't need that elbow. It's just kind of there supporting the space a little bit. Again, maybe you're going deeper, that hand coming towards the floor. And this is fine as long as you're not sending your butt out behind. So you want to keep sending it towards that right edge of the mat. Long breath. And on an exhale, coming down with the hands, working that left foot a little towards the left edge of the mat, just so you're not on such a tight rope. And inhaling, rotating through the spine, deepening that twist on the exhale. So this pose should have some undulation. The inhale takes space, and the exhale is like wringing a rag. Good. One more. And release. Step back, downward facing dog. An opportunity for dog series if you'd like, otherwise a resting pose or anything alternate your body's craving. Inhaling plank, pause, make sure those thighs are activated to the sky, shoulders down, elbows in, exhale chaturanga. Maybe you can hold even with the elbows and then scoop through upward facing dog. Exhaling downward facing dog. And we're going to be meeting at the front of the mat. So if you're feeling just super energized and fluid, bend those knees. Inhale, look forward between your hands. Exhale, strong core support, hop forward. Resting with that spine hanging down, and then inhaling, root and rise. Invitation to close the eyes. Come present with your heart rate, your temperature, and of course your breath. So we're going to explore train tracks, which we haven't done in a while, and I believe to be really central to helping us find neutral in our pelvic alignment, and that creates peace throughout the whole body. So actually, let's start with our hands on hips, and when we are ready, we're going to simply first make sure that your feet start straight forward, then step back with that right foot, maybe a foot and a half, and I want to slowly send that heel towards the floor, imagining I'm placing it back into that train track, if you will, the rails. Then I'm going to look under to check, and I'm going to adjust until that heel truly is straight back. It'd be very rare that most people would have it already in that position. Coming on up, and if this feels a little awkward, that would be normal, and it means you actually found a good and useful stretch. If you're just not feeling anything much and you want to explore, you could send that front foot scooching forward a little bit, but also please check as you intend to anchor down through the ball of that front big toe. I'm hoping you'll see that your ankle becomes really aligned. If you're not sure, let go of that inner foot a little and you'll see how it changes your whole alignment of the leg. We want to train that inner engagement, rooting ability through the foot. And if you'd like, you could add arms down or up, which can provide a marvelous stretch into that right hip. And so as one more long inhale, pushing down through that right heel, down through the inner line of that front foot, and exhale, return to your mountain. So usually that back leg to me ends up feeling a little rubbery, and that's a good sign that there's some kind of rearranging happening, a renegotiation. Let's step back with that left foot. And what it really means is usually that the over dominant things are starting to let go, and the things that have been too sleepy are starting to wake up. So as you're ready to set that left heel in your track, pause. Check that, again, inner thigh kind of rotation that allows that inner foot at the front to be rooted. See if you need to scooch the front foot to deepen the stretch. And both legs active, rooting, reaching. And perhaps you'd like to add arms. Again, they might be up for a little bit of that added low belly stretch, or you might be reaching down kind of jet airplane to work the triceps. You can even do that push that we've done, bending the elbows and straightening. Breathing and returning. Can feel good to shake them out. You could also do a little ragdoll forward fold. And I'm going to bring us into a little flow here with kind of the prep for standing half moon pose, and a good kind of easier version of the similar kind of principles would be gate pose, which I know a lot of us have done before. Otherwise, I'm going to be showing you this. If this is just so intense on your hamstrings, trying to get your hands to the floor, or even using the block, you could also use like an ottoman or something like that. So I'm going to come into a fold and first just bend my knees. And then inviting you perhaps to take hold of a block so that as you try to straighten the legs, you're able to do so. And again, if that doesn't work, you might be opting to do it here on an ottoman. That would be a wonderful, or a chair, just whatever works, a wonderful support. So shoulder heads down, nice core support, and I'm going to send my right leg straight back, hips neutral to start. Good. Then I want to make sure I'm really working this left glute to open my right hip. So I'm using that left butt to press open to the right. And I'm going to neutral it and open. Powerful core work here. And then hold. See if you can. It's a lot easier if you're using a block if it's not on its side, because it tends to be a little wobbly. See if you can bring your right hand to your right hip. Pause. See if you can keep opening the right hip until it feels stacked. Then try to open the shoulders until the shoulders feel stacked. Woo. Keeping your vision on your floor foot or on the block will help. And then opening that top arm. Holy moly. And coming slowly back or falling out if that's what you got. And hanging in your fold. Inhale, root and rise. Big butt squeeze. Get those glutes activated. We just asked them to do a big opening, and now we're helping kind of balance that out. All right, we're going into the other side. If you're noticing any, kind of sciatic pain, nerve pinching, anything like that, this then is not your pose. Not today anyway, right? So honor that as you're ready. Inhale, extend. And to have the legs straight, we really want to work those quadriceps so that I'm not hyperextending through the knee. I want the thighs squeezing towards the bone, weight midfoot. And then I'm going to extend back through my left leg, heel flexed. First hip neutral. I can check by looking underneath me, actually at that back foot, and then opening that back leg. Make sure that that back leg isn't swinging out behind you and taking you into the outer part of your standing foot. So you're rooting through the inner foot and you're reaching open through that back leg, squeezing the right glute towards the left edge of the mat will help. When you're ready, hold in that open position. Again, it's a lot of core work if you do it right. I can feel this in my right abdomen very strongly. And you might be on fingertips or however you want to do it. First, keep the vision on the floor, on the foot,
and bring your left hand to the hip. Then go ahead and see if you can keep opening that hip. Rooting and reaching, breathing. Soft tongue, soft jaw, maybe smiling. Then stacking shoulders and see if you can open up through that left arm. And if you have something taller than the block flat, maybe 2 blocks or what have you, that would be ideal. When you're ready, come on up, because then your body can be truly kind of parallel to the floor versus sort of dipping down. But this is also a fun one to play with up against a wall, so that you have a wall behind you, and you can get some of the good work without quite as much balance challenge. So that can be kind of fun. All right, I'm going to offer a last little flow here that will involve that pose. Again, whatever element of that pose, however much you want to come into it, just might be both hands staying on the floor and just working that hip open and hip close. It's again, really great workout for our pelvic stability. Joining me, please, in mountain prayer hands and finding your sense of neutral. So we're rooting and reaching to the sky, but then feeling as much calm and peace in our muscular body, our structural body as we can. So notice if the head feels forward or cranked, or the ribs forward, or anything. Find your weight fully in the footbed, neither in the heel or forward in the foot. Light connection of the palms, feel their heat, light connection tip of the tongue, roof of the mouth, maybe even a soft smile. And on your inhale, root and rise up. Exhaling, fold. Compression, emptying, emptying, emptying. Inhale, extend halfway, hands on shins. Is there more? Exhaling, step back, right leg only. And we're going to be in this low crescent lunge here. We can actually offer us in a twist again, where you just were before, if you would like. Or you can come into prayer twist, placing that right elbow onto the left thigh. Hands in prayer. Big inhale, shoulder heads anchor. And I'm trying to rotate that left hip bone back, right hip bone forward. Make sure that back leg stays active. Giving it room on the inhale. Emptying on the exhale. Good. See if you got one more. Always giving the breath room. And release. Good. Pause, and I want to ask you to just shift forward and back a moment. And then I'm going to have you drop your right knee and shift the hips back, so you're in kind of a runner's lunge, as some people call it. Flexing that left foot back. And if it feels appropriate, briefly draping the torso. And returning that foot flat. Come onto the ball of the back foot. We're going to launch onto that left leg so that we're standing with that right leg straight back. And I'm going to ask you now begin to open and to close. And theoretically, if your left leg can be straight here and your hand's on the floor, you don't need the block. Sometimes it creates an improved experience, so you could pause and go grab it. Otherwise, hold right here. And if you've got where you want your hand is kind of forward of the foot and a little out, bring that right hand to the hip. Rotate open. Open the arm and shoulder. Always the shoulder first, actually. And see if you're able to hold. We're actually coming into a lunge from here, but I didn't want to do it quite yet. Good. And when you are ready, in fact, release the hands. Drop that back foot into crescent lunge. Inhaling on up. Deep back bend. Exhaling, plant the hands downward facing dog. Dog series. You'll have this and one more option for dog series. And again, you can always edit that out or do it a different way too. Inhaling plank. Thighs activate to the sky. Boom. Exhaling chaturanga, chest precedes the hips. Inhaling either cobra or upward facing dog. Is there more? Exhaling downward facing dog or child's pose. Inhale, exhale, sigh. And we'll all join at the front of the mat. You might jump forward as we've done. You might step one leg forward, then the other. Let the spine just hang, the breath be calm. And on an inhale, drop the butt, root and rise. Big butt squeeze. Exhaling, resolve, prayer hands. Be present with the breath. We know that that's one of the most important things that we are cultivating in our yoga practice, is that tuning in, that noticing, that witnessing. And that's hard to do when you're in constant movement or even holding a kind of intense pose. So these pause moments are true gold. Never pass them up. On an inhale, root and rise. Is there more? If you'd like a back bend, go for it. Exhaling, fold. Inhaling, extend halfway. Exhaling, step back, left leg only. Coming into our prayer twist. So I'm going to walk my right foot over a little bit towards the right. Again, you could do knee down. And it's very important, right hip bone back, left hip bone forward. That's what's giving me the stability to come up like this without it bothering my legs. Exhaling, planting that left elbow onto right thigh. And this might be plenty, but if you'd like to add your prayer hands, shoulder heads anchoring, on each inhale, give it room. And on each exhale, try to rotate the chest away from that left bicep. Sending the vision to the sky can be a nice additional balance challenge. Soft tongue. So can you keep the tongue relaxed while you're working your core this much? One more. Rooting through the ball of that front foot. If the balance is hard, keep your vision on the foot. And release. Nice. Drop that back knee. Oh, actually, I think we stepped out to dog last time. Let's do that. Step back. I can't remember. I've been working so hard on balancing. All right, bring that right foot forward, drop that left knee, and now extend the hips back. So again, this nice little runner's lunge, right hip back, left hip forward. Saying hello to your hamstrings and wherever else this might be showing up. We really want it in the meat of the hamstring, not behind the knee or at the butt. If any of that's happening, you try bending the knee instead. And then as you're ready, coming onto that front foot and preparing for your launch, your prep for standing half moon. So as you're ready, launch that back leg, fold. This fold is really an important preparation because that gets me into the core. So I'm not just hanging on that leg. I also want to be able to check that that back foot is straight back and not winging. So that little eye contact with the foot tells me where I am. And then I start opening and pushing and rooting and reaching and closing. And then when and if I feel stable and ready, rooting and reaching, breathing, I might take my left hand to my left hip. And I might begin to rotate more deeply so the shoulders become stacked. And perhaps extending that arm. Shoulder heads anchoring down the back. I know this is really hard after all that leg work we've done. And when you're complete, release that back foot down, crescent lunge. Again, very important, hip steer. Come on up. Crescent lunge, maybe with a little back bend. Deepen the hips down and forward, ribs forward, heart up. Vision up if it doesn't bother your neck, and release, downward facing dog. Inhale, exhale, sigh. Do a couple more if you need to gather the energy. Again, always moving from a place of breath and not striving. And if you'd like, inhaling plank. Exhaling chaturanga.
Inhaling upward facing dog or cobra. And exhaling
downward facing dog. Coming into pigeon,
which of course could be reclined pigeon if you prefer it. Otherwise, right knee behind the right wrist and come on down. This should feel pretty good right now.
We'll be doing bridge in a moment to close this physical part of the practice, and that should feel really, really good too. If you want to deepen the pose, remember you can use that back foot to pull a little further back on the mat. And we can come into 3 breath releases here. It's a great way to move any tension, again, any stress out of your body. Let's gather a long inhale. Again. Inhaling to your waking
pigeon, drawing that heart forward, or sometimes staying low and doing a little twisting can feel good to people. Take your time coming on out, either to dog or table. You might give that back leg a little release. I kind of call it a mule kick, and then bringing that left knee forward. So we know that this pose, pigeon among others, really good deep hip stretches. We believe them to be really helpful, of course, not only for helping release hip tension, but also getting to kind of the energy center that is about safety and enough, food, shelter, this kind of thing. And so I think, again, recognizing that there are a lot of people right now suffering with not feeling safe, whole, and well, and because we care and we are connected beings, inevitably we will take on some of that, even if our own life really feels safe and well and whole. And of course, some of that might be in challenge too. So when you're ready, join me in a few breaths just to move energy. Again, it doesn't have to have a story or even words to connect with it. Big inhale, slowly through the nose, move it into your belly, down into the pelvis, and exhale, big release through the mouth. And I always feel by the last one that sort of there's less pressure, that the cork has already been popped and that the energy is flowing, and it's just really interesting to recognize that. And again, coming into your waking pigeon, shoulder heads activating down. And in your own time, come on out. Now, one way you could come out, because we're going straight into bridge pose, is just rock out onto that left hip, bring the legs around, and then as you're ready, come on down. Have your block handy. And we're just going to activate into bridge pose, sending those hips up. And you can come on down and back up again, or you might hold your most intense version of bridge as your final posture. They used to say at Kripalu, where I trained, that your Shavasana was only as good as your final pose, the intensity, in other words. So when you're ready, you might join me in leg extensions. If you're in a deep bridge with Yoga Mudra, I wouldn't recommend it. I think that can actually create too much neck pressure. So please don't have your arms in Yoga Mudra if you're adding these leg extensions. Hoping you're feeling pretty good neutrality after the train tracks and all of that. I'm going to lower my hips and then grab my block, raise the hips, and place the block right into the sacral triangle.
And for some of us, just settling like so will be plenty. And notice the block is not in my low vertebrae. It's right on that bony triangle at the top of the crack of the butt. And if you go to extend your legs and you feel like your pelvis kind of dumps down and arches, then you need the block further down the body. So it should feel that you're just kind of perfectly supported. And as you settle into this shape for a few breaths, please recognize that everything about this shape indicates non-doing, right? Non-striving, nothing to prepare for or accomplish. And so please let your breath also get very, very calm, rising and settling with gravity. Gravity always there to hold you, to draw you down, to ground you. Breath rising and settling, witnessing. When you feel complete, and we don't want to hold here overly long. This isn't something you would hold during like an entire Shavasana. Come on out. And you might bring knees to belly as a nice little kind of counter shape. Maybe you need a spinal twist. Maybe you're craving something else. Please do. And then when you're ready, please find your resting shape. So maybe it's corpse. I'm going to be coming into seated for the rest of the practice. And I'll be offering, after a few minutes of your total resting Shavasana, I will be offering the meditation that I mentioned. Like I said, it's very simple. It's not something you have to be mentally very alert for. And I'd welcome you to just stay in your Shavasana and receive the meditation as I'm speaking it. You're also welcome to come to a seated meditation if you prefer. Wherever you are, whatever shape, again, let gravity have you. Let a softening happen through your scalp, through your tongue, a softening through the eyes. And as you watch breath rising and settling, I hope you have a sense of your body being more relaxed, more spacious, more receptive, more peaceful. Breath is simply the passive, soft breath of a baby sleeping. No ujjayi, no effort of any kind. Just a gentle wave. Although sometimes when we come to rest, we might notice that there is tension or that there is pressure, something wanting to release. You could always do more sighing breath. It's one of our most powerful yet very simple tools. Notice if your mind is scattered or active, and bring it on back to breath observation. We might do this 100 times in any one meditation or Shavasana.
Whether you are seated or lying down, I invite you to join me in this very simple meditation of inviting with our inhale pain, suffering. It might be the pain or suffering of an individual, of a community, of the entire planet, the environment. You get to choose, and you don't have to name it. Inhaling pain, suffering, and then letting your body transmute it so that as you exhale, you are offering peace, shanti. So the way that I do this is on the inhale, repeating the words suffering, pain, whatever feels poignant to me at the time. And on the exhale, thinking shanti, 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 or peace, peace, peace. So inviting you to continue in this way for a few rounds, your own timing, your own words. Inviting you to notice how that feels, and invitation to return to this. Try it again a few times and just see if it continues to evolve or continues to be a useful tool for you for working with some of your awareness, and then the pain that can come with that awareness of all the suffering that is around us. Again, even if not in our own life, but perhaps also in our own lives. I thank you so much for coming to the mat, to the tapas or the resolve that got you to the mat today. And please know that you've done a great deal of healing and moving and so on of energy systems in your own body, and then also a great offering to those around you. So grateful. If you care to join me in Ohms, please do. Gathering a long inhale. Om Shanti Shanti. Om Peace Peace. Namaste.